up to speed, and then you always want to make sure the incrementals match the run. If you got a hot dog wrapper that blows through the lights, there's no way a car was 2 seconds quicker than it ran the car next to it. And Tasca's run, everything looks legit. That thing stacks up 339.87 miles an hour, ties the record for the fastest piston-engined drag racing run of all time.
That was the next point. It tied it. As we left the air yesterday, we were everybody here in Bradenton, under the impression it was the fastest in history. We come back today, they've looked a little deeper into the timing, and we find out it ties Robert Height's performance at Sonoma.
The mile an hour goes 2 decimal places, so 339.87 miles an hour. Now, the CompuLink system has the ability to go out further decimal places. You'd have to be live, you'd have to freeze the data, you'd have to look at it. At some point, you're splitting hairs. It is the fastest run in drag racing history, as it is a tie for first, and that thing did everything right from the time he stepped on the throttle to the time he put the parachutes out.
Boy, it just whistled down the straight, didn't it? What a stunning run. There you see it.
Yeah, and guess what we're not talking about? It was also the quickest ET of Funny Car up to this point.
Let's show you the race format. We've got cars ready to go. This is the inaugural running of the event. It is invitational only. Top Fuel, Funny Car, and Pro Stock teams competing. Teams will compete for $1.3 million in total prize money. 4 qualifying sessions. We did 1 yesterday, 3 to go today. 8-car fields in Top Fuel and Funny Car, 16-car Pro Stock field. Random chip draws. This is where it gets interesting, Jack. Will determine the pairings for all rounds of eliminations up to, of course, the final. $250,000 going to the Top Fuel and Funny Car winners, $125,000 going to Pro Stock, and that's where we kick off our live event coverage here today. Pro Stock qualifying session number 2 for the weekend, number 1 of the day. Dave Conley is going to be up here, driver out of Ohio, and he is going to be paired up here with Mason McGahey.
Yeah, neither one of these cars got down the racetrack. Mason's car shut off 150 feet out. Conley had problems, lifted, coasted down there. Looks like our run order is going to basically be standard for a national event. The cars that ran quickest the session before will run at the tail end of the pack. The cars that struggled will run at the front end. Oh boy, and another 0 for 2. And McGahey gets back on the throttle, going to get down there and get a time slip.
Yep, 6:9:22, 207.3 miles an hour.
So you look at those numbers.
Right now.
692 doesn't go with 207 miles an hour. Remember, mile an hour is only the last 66 feet of the racetrack. It's an average speed there. ET is clocked from the time the car leaves the starting line. So he launched, spun, lifted, got back in it. Kills the ET, but still has a pretty good speed. It puts him in the field. I don't think it's going to keep him in the field. Maybe more important, it gives him a little bit of data on shift points and things like that.
He gets 2 more shots at it here today. Next up is going to be Erica Enders, going with Eric Latino. Latino here.
Yeah, and you don't normally see Erica Enders run early in a session.
Well, all 3 of our reigning champions struggled yesterday.
Well, that's why they give you 4 darts to throw at the dartboard for qualifying, right? You just need to get one of them in the bullseye there. I don't think Erica and that elite car are going to struggle for 3 runs today.
Here's a look at our top 3 champions and how they struggled. These are the champions, the reigning champions. Doug Kalitta, Top Fuel, of course, Matt Hagen in Funny Car, and Erica here in Pro Stock. P11, P9, and P17 with some work to do. Again, we're only taking 8 in the fuel category.
Oh boy, I'm going to start my complaining earlier. Guys, we're not F1. We don't P. We're 11th, 10th, 9th, 8th. You get that, right?
It's a long day with you today, yeah. Hey, I didn't make the graphic. I'm just reading them.
Yes. All right, we're going to start sipping Perrier and champagne up here and go for P1. Yeah, so qualifying...
Good thing we don't have Pro Stock bikes here because we get deep into drivers and riders, right?
Qualifying typically gives you bonus points and a chance to pair against a lower qualified car for a more favorable first round of eliminations matchup. Doesn't matter here. It's going to be a chip draw. We'll talk about that moving forward. So you just need to qualify. Doesn't matter if you're first or 16th at Pro Stock.
Right now, Eric Latino is in the field. He is in the 12th position. with a 6.627.
Yeah, and the Pro Stock cars, we talked about this, they are slaves to the atmospheric conditions. They're normally aspirated. It's horsepower that gives them a good ET. When the weather gets worse, higher humidity, lower barometric pressure, boy.
Looks like Erica's going to get all the way down the boulevard here in this one.
Yeah, but it was not the launch that you would expect to see out of her car. That car wadded up the tires. You can actually see the tire tracks down there. And if you looked at the incremental numbers, she was fine from half track on. The first 60 feet of that car, it was 500ths off of what it should be on a competitive run.
Latino moved up a couple of spots to 8th. And let's check in with Jamie Howe, who's a part of our broadcast team this weekend. Hi, Jamie. Well, a little bit of technical difficulty with Jamie's microphone right now. We'll get back to her in a minute.
Those mime classes are working out fantastic for Jamie, aren't they?
So Troy Coughlin Jr. rolls out in the Jegs car, and Camry Caruso.
So talking more about what is conducive to a good run in a Pro Stock car. You want high pressure, right? You want as much air getting into that intake manifold as you can. You want low humidity. That is moisture in the air, you can't burn it. You want low temperature, that is denser air.
Of course, Aqua Prop and Brandon Foster helping out Camry Caruso, as is Big Jeff Audio, and Big Jeff, who's a huge supporter of drag racing. Good to have Big Jeff a part of Camry's program. And of course, Jegs on the side of Coughlin's machine.
You've got to thank the people that are responsible for putting the cars on the racetrack. So, all these crew chiefs have based their fuel injection programming on the density altitude. They all have weather stations, they have wind meters on there, they have some fairly sophisticated data, and at the end of the day it tells them how to map their fuel system to get the quintessential air-fuel ratio. You can't burn more than the air will give you. Unlike a nitro car that has a supercharger and an oxygen-bearing fuel, these are gasoline-powered engines. They're normally aspirated. They can't go quicker than the air would allow. We are in Florida, the humidity's pretty high. I would imagine the night run will tend to give us more favorable conditions. And I would say a good ET in these conditions would probably be somewhere around a 653 or 4.
Well, how about a 655 with a 1 for Troy Coughlin and 211.860 miles an hour. Camry Caruso, 12th with a 658. And we're going to try Jamie one more time. Jamie, how's the mic working this time?
And just before we went away, we were talking to Mason McGahey. It's about missing some of those test runs, not getting that experience. But now you've got some of the bugs out, able to make a run there. How do you move forward for the rest of the sessions?
Yeah, just get back in the rhythm of things, and I was really wanting to miss school this week and test and get those runs in, but I just couldn't miss that valuable school time. I just had to really load up my schedule this year. I've been kind of putting off the school a little bit to do more racing, and I was like, well, if I want to finally get the school done, I should probably load up on it a little bit more and miss out on this some, but just, yeah, get back in the rhythm and just do more runs. I messed up last night and I headed for my guys, and we shook there, but I was able to pedal it and I guess go through the gears again and just, you know, kind of do sort of like a run, and we got 2 more and see if we can all gel together.
Making the best of it, chasing the dream, but still got to go to school, kids.
All right, thank you, Jamie and Mason. And Fernando Quadra Jr., closest to us here in the tower, and Greg Anderson in the right lane, the HendrickCars.com machine.
Yeah, Greg made a representative run first pass, 656, gives him something to tune off of. Didn't get everything that he needed, but Fernando missed it. 692, he's on the bump right now. If you look down track at the scoreboards, it'll show you 692 up there. And it's likely, if all 18 of these cars make a representative run, it's going to take something in the high 650s to stay in the top 16.
Corral handcrafted boots entry, ready to go.
I don't know, man. You can't mess up yellow and black. It just looks cool out there. Anderson's car was not perfect the first 20 feet.
Well, he goes a little bit slower than what he ran. Fernando Quadra goes significantly quicker, up to 6 with a 6:54 with a 6, 211.130.
Yeah, we watched Erica in that left-hand lane kind of overpower the lane. Too much wheel spin early, slows down the ET. Just saw Greg Anderson over in the right lane do something similar. Right now, the track crew is putting that gold dust, that rosin down over the launch spot of the Pro Stock cars. They have so much gear ratio, so much launch RPM, they literally tear the rubber off the starting line. So once they put that gold dust down, you're going to try to direct the driver to do their burnout right on top of that and embed some more rubber on there. They need to get a launch spot with better traction. Bald concrete doesn't give good traction. That thin coat of rubber makes all the difference in the world. And Ralph, here at Bradenton, there's a lot of aggregate on the starting line. It is concrete that has been ground down to become smoother, but what happens is once you knock down that screed layer and you get down to the rocks, you lose a lot of contact area. It's a rougher surface. So they'll come out, they'll drag it with the tire rotators, put a little rubber down there, they'll spray it with glue, and they'll keep doing that and try to fill it in and make it smooth. But these cars launch so hard, they keep ripping that off of there. And not just the Pro Stock cars, some of the Nitro cars have had to compensate for that on the launch pad here. It's going to get more noticeable the warmer the racetrack gets. When the racetrack cools and it tightens that rubber, it's not as big a factor. But when you get in the middle of the day, that's something where you got to kind of walk on eggshells as a crew chief out there.
A pair of Camaros up here with Derek Kramer and Chris McGahey, looking at McGahey's silver entry right here.
Yeah, McGahey made a solid lap yesterday, 6:55, and that should be enough to keep him in the show. So at this point, they're kind of playing with house money. They're tuning up for tomorrow. But Kramer, his 6:69 from yesterday, I don't think that that's going to be, even if it stays hot the rest of the day, I don't think that that would be enough to keep him in the show. It's currently sitting on the bump spot. I think he's going to have to pick up a little over 1/10 of a second to be more confident to stay in the field.
Oh, problems for Kramer right off the line. McGahey straight down the boulevard. He runs a 6:54 with a Ford, 210.640 miles an hour.
Yeah, you look at that left-hand lane. God, if we could stay on the racing surface after Kramer's car goes by, you can see intermittent paddle marks from those tires. You could see it pretty clearly there in that video trailing the car. That thing is shaking the tires violently. So what happens is you get traction, the tire goes square, it rolls over itself, loses traction, spins, smacks the ground again and gets traction. And when you're inside the car, it's a little bit like holding onto a paint shaker. It is headache inducing immediately. And as a driver, you don't need to be told it's time to lift off the throttle.
Yeah. Pretty aware.
Yeah, I've been asked by a lot of newer drivers when they transition to Nitro, how I know if it shakes the tires. I said, oh, that's easy. There'll be a neon sign on the dash. There'll be lightning bolts that come into the cockpit, and God will let you know over the PA system it is shaking the tires. There is no part of you that will have to question whether that's tire shaking.
I think that was tire shaking.
It hurts.
Yeah.
Your vision starts to go to tunnel vision. You stay on it, your vision goes away. All right, now we're getting into the last 4 pair of Pro Stock cars, and the remaining 8 cars all made pretty representative runs last night. Quadra went a 6:58 with the 5. I'm speculating here, and it's all dependent on the weather. A little bit on the track, but mostly on the weather. That's going to probably end up being pretty close to the bump spot when all's said and done. If he wants to be comfortable, he's going to have to pick up a couple hundreds. Aaron Stanfield won a booming 6:52 yesterday. That's a stout lap. And again, it puts him in a more comfortable position. You know you're probably safely qualified. You get to go out and practice for 3 more runs.
It's getting a little warmer out there. Temperature up to just about 73 degrees now. In talking with Greg Anderson, he said anything up to 75 degrees here, the track is great. Get between 75 and 80, and it falls off the cliff in a hurry.
We do still have quite a few clouds up there. Cloud cover makes a difference. When it blocks the sun, if you were continuously monitoring track temperatures, you would see it change 6 degrees up and down just with a few minutes of cloud cover there. that 6 degrees makes a big difference in grip out there. It's tough as a crew chief with clouds because it's so unpredictable. What is the starting line going to be like once my car is staged and ready to go? And you just have to make an educated guess for your final clutch and RPM setups.
Stanfield and Quadra.
Stanfield did a nice job getting that car back into the groove.
And the Johnson's horsepower garage machine of Stanfield with a 210.930 run. Quadra improves to a 6.574.
Yeah, so Quadra improved 11 thousandths of a second, which sounds like a big deal. That might be all the difference in the world once qualifying's closed. Yeah, it's 657. That's a lot safer than a 658 for staying in this field. And I know people say, Jack, why would you be saying this is session 2 of 4? Because at some point you run out of darts to throw at that dartboard. Now, in theory, session 4 probably will be the best conditions today for pro stock. We don't know that. We got some rain last night.
Yeah.
This is very unpredictable. You're chasing
Florida. I mean,
yep, and
stick around, the weather's going to change, right?
You're just chasing a continually moving target with track and weather conditions.
All right. Up next, Matt Hartford and Bo Butner. Hartford.
Bo Butner, a running joke. On one side of the car it says Bo Butner. On the other side, Jason Line started this by moving one of the letters. It said Bob Butner. The fun drivers have with each other.
Hartford right below us, right there. Good look at his machine. Driver out of Arizona. This Camaro ready to go. Walked up to the beam. Locked in right where they want. And right here is Bo Butner. From Indiana, one of the elite motorsports entries.
Whereabouts in Indiana?
That's Floyd's Knob.
One of the coolest sounding towns ever.
I can honestly tell you, I've been to a lot of racetracks in Indiana. I've never been to Floyd's Knob.
I have to put that on the bucket list.
Yeah, that's what you do.
I believe it's pronounced canard, Ralph. It's a French word, meaning something that opens a drawer.
Formula One thing. Butner and Hartford.
Wow, Hartford's car carried the front wheels out there.
He's going to carry a lot of speed to the far end with a 659 with a 208.750 miles an hour. Hartford's 10th.
Yeah, doesn't improve, but you see that he came into this session 6th. He's been pushed down to 10th. And the weather conditions, I think scientifically rate them as a blah right now for pro stock cars. They're going to get blah minus next round. Yeah, Hartford's car, we got a better view because we're on the left-hand side, and with the torque of the chassis, it's going to want to pick up the left front first, but it carried both front tires out there quite a bit, and you see that tire shake from Bo's car out there. You just see those patches of black, looks like sand paddle tires on there, and I'm telling you, if it's eliminations, in a pro stock car, sometimes you can drive through that. If it's a nitro car, no way. You're going to get off the throttle and back on it. But in eliminations, you're going to get it to the finish line and try to win. In qualifying, it just hurts, and it loosens everything on the race car.
Well, here's one of the surprises of the night. Jerry Tucker on the Red Outlaw machine.
And who's in the other lane?
Believe it or not, Jed Coughlin Jr.
But it's orange.
I know. That's why I said believe it or not.
You know, Skag has really stepped up in a big way.
Boy,
It's nice to see them increase their footprint in drag racing, and it's awesome to see Jed Coughlin out here trying to race for another championship. Yeah, I thought Tucker was a surprise run of the night, you know, and boy, here we are, not even to the first official race of the season, but the first race of the season, and it's clearly already the line between KB Racing and Elite. Right now, they are number 1 and 2 in qualifying. Dallas Glenn with that KB car went 650. Jerry Tucker with that elite car went 651. And I think we're going to see that all day today and tomorrow. Those two teams, and that's not to rule out the other teams out there. You know, the McGahe's, there's a lot of other good competitive engine platforms.
Outlaw Mile High Light Beer on Tucker's entry.
I wonder what he'd drink in the winner's circle.
Well, he might have had a couple last night to celebrate a good performance.
And they well deserved.
Yeah, they ran solid. See what they can do in warmer temps here this afternoon as we begin the day.
Yeah, so not only are they battling slightly reduced horsepower from the warmer conditions, they're battling slightly reduced racetrack traction. Little bit of tire spin from Tucker in that right lane.
He runs a 656 at 208.8 miles an hour. Coughlin 655, 211.830. He's ninth.
The story in Pro Stock is get what you can get when you can get it. Last night, the conditions might have been the best of all four of the qualifying runs. The cars that made the good runs last night might find that they're not going to run quicker than that. They could run better than that relative to the conditions, but we qualify you based on the numbers from the ET. So like Dallas Glenn's 650 from last night, Jerry Tucker's 651 from last night, those could very realistically stand for the top two positions all the way through qualifying. Or maybe we get a cold front move in for Q4 and all of a sudden, yeah, you never know. And Ralph, I can honestly say in my life,
fire on
I never know. Yeah, that is not smoke from a burnout, folks.
No.
I like how they call it a controlled burn until it gets to 3 acres.
Yeah. Christian Quadra and Dallas Glenn.
So we talked about the run order. The cars that ran the quickest the session before run towards the end of the pack. There's a caveat on that. The drivers need to alternate lanes. The racetrack tells them when they will run and which lane they will run in for all of their qualifying sessions. So Christian Quadra was the 5th quickest car last night, but he was the quickest car in the right lane, which means he will run last in the left lane. Dallas Glenn was the quickest car in the left lane last night, which happened to be the quickest car.
Out of McAllen, Texas, 24-year-old driver.
Or is it?
Here's Dallas Glenn. Rad Torch Systems sponsoring his Chevrolet. Driver out of Mooresville, North Carolina. Not in my neighborhood, I don't think, but
that's not like when you meet somebody, you know, the guy's from Chicago and he meets somebody out in California from Chicago. He's like, do you know Joe? Like, there's only 3 guys in Chicago. You must know him if you're from out there.
Or New Jersey, which exit you
Right.
All right, here we go. Glenn and Quadra. Oh, problem.
Easy to tell what happened to
Glenn.
Dallas.
Quadra puts a good one together with a 652 at a 9, 211.760.
Monster run for the conditions. Remember, it's not how quick you run, it's how quick you run relative to everybody else. Quickest run of the session. Dallas Glenn's car, I don't know if we're going to see a replay. Wheel stood and drove right. When the front tire's in the air, you can't correct the steering. You are dependent on equal traction from both of those rear tires. He had more spin on the right side, which caused the car to turn right, and very wisely decided that's as far as I want to drive it.
Here's a look at the results out of qualifying session number 2 for the Pro Stock cars, how they stack up right now. Remember, we are taking a full 16-car field here with Pro Stock. And when we come back, we will have the first of the 2 Nitro categories, Funny Car, scheduled to be up next when we come back to Bradenton. Stay with us here on Flow.
Speed, power, performance, and top-notch results on the turf and on the track. Skag Power Equipment is mowing down the competition. Built by hard-working Americans in state-of-the-art facilities, Skag machines are made to last. Don't get left behind. Visit your local Skag dealer to discover the Skag difference for yourself. Skag, simply the best.
This season, Toyota Racing is looking for jaw droppers.
Break for Martin Truex right there, the fastest lap of the day.
Iron stomachs that can stand the pressure. And quick draw thumbs that leave their own smoke trail. So hold on tight and strap yourself in. This season, we want you. Join us at Toyota Racing.
You're watching a first-of-its-kind shootout featuring the biggest stars in Top Fuel, Funny Car, Pro Stock, and more. The inaugural Skag Power Equipment Pro Superstar Shootout presented by Johnson's Horse.
Not too far from us, just about 20 minutes to the west of us, is where you find the beach over on the Gulf of Mexico side here in Florida. It's like a beautiful day over there, Jack.
Well, it's hard to complain about the weather in Florida in February.
Yeah. Here's a look at the information for the funny car category. $250,000 to win. Again, an 8-car field. Of course, a race to 1,000 feet. 4 qualifying sessions, as it is for everybody today. This will be session number 2 for them. All NHRA rules and racing procedures is what is governing the action here this weekend. Let's hear from the guy who put up that amazing speed last night, 339 miles an hour, Bob Tasca with Jamie Howe.
To put on an event like this, it takes an entire committee, months and months of planning. Bob Tasca, you're one of the pro members that has been part of this whole process, and you came into it with the intention of putting on something special for the fans. But last night, you tied the world record speed, 339.87 miles an hour. For you, how special is that?
Jamie, you and I were deciphering it there on the top end. We were going back and forth, and then when we realized that it was Tide Roberts' run back in 2017, you know, we knew this race was going to be something very special. You know, the racers getting together hasn't been done in many decades, right? But to be able to put on a national event quality show in front of all these spectacular fans and have a racetrack as good as this racetrack with conditions as optimal as they were last night, it was primed for something special. And, you know, just really proud of the team behind me. You know, Aaron Brooks, Todd Okahara, they've been working so hard on this tune-up. We ran 338 in Dallas. We feel we can run 340. We went out there last night. 339 was maybe gave us a little more than we were expecting. But definitely tonight, we're going to take a shot at that 340-mile-an-hour mark.
Now, you mentioned how it's morning time. 3 qualifying runs today. That's not something that's the normal routine for this team. How do you go about attacking the day?
Well, hey, listen, another first in the history of the sport. You're going to have 32 funny cars making, 32 top fuel cars making 3 runs today. It's going to give us a lot of data for that last run tonight. These guys are in race mode. This is like eliminations today, which is great, setting them up for tomorrow. But no, we're all business with this PPG Mustang.
All right, and of course, at the end of the day, it's all going to culminate with that chip draw to get ready for round 1. Lots to come.
That is for sure, Jamie. Oh, man, there's a look at that fire burning, and there's nothing controlled looking about that, is there, Jeff?
I think that's where I parked my rental car, Ralph.
It might be your rental car.
Oh, my goodness.
All right. We will be right. Hope everybody's okay over there. Hope they get that put out. And we're coming right back to Bradenton Motorsports Park. Stay with us. Welcome back to Bradenton Motorsports Park. How about Franken Scraper?
Yeah, we were trying to think of names. We were going to do a write-in, mail-in ballot thing, and that is
I'm happy to give out your phone number.
That is it. I thought you just wrote it in the men's room there. But that's the new Skag mower converted to take some of the manual labor out of scraping down that excessive rubber once it builds up too thick on the starting line.
In case you need to order it through your local Skag dealer, it is a zero-turn scraper.
Yeah, I saw Jeff Lutz out here from Street Outlaws. Maybe they can buy one of those things, take it out on the street and prep it for their cars.
I like Franken Scraper.
I like it. I like it. Patented, all rights reserved, registered. Yes.
That's it, baby. Franken Scraper. I'll have T-shirts at Gainesville.
Wow. Check that out.
How about that? How's your Friday going? 4 miles of traffic backed up to get into Bradenton Motorsports Park. Love it. Hate the fact you folks are sitting in traffic. Thrilled over the fact that you're coming out here to Bradenton for the Skag Pro Superstar Shootout presented by Johnson's Horsepower Garage, the inaugural event. And the temperature continues to climb. Mr. Beckman, 74 degrees now and continuing to go up.
Yep. Broken clouds there. We got some wind, but if you look at right now, the ambient temperature trails the track temperature by 23 degrees. The longer the duration of the sun, as we get more into the afternoon, and the less cloud cover, you're going to start to see that track temperature diverge as much as 40 degrees there. And 97 degrees is still a pretty good tacky racetrack. You can give it a pretty good amount of torque and power and RPM. As you see it climb above 105, the Nitro crew chiefs are going to have to start backing down everything. Slow down the clutch timers, take some weight off, all that stuff. And the end result is slower ETs. Remember, it's not how quick you run, it's how quick you run relative to the conditions. However, when it's qualifying, it's how quick you run. They're only taking the quick 8 in top fuel, the quick 8 in funny car, and the quick 16 in pro stock. So we've already had 2 complete sessions of pro stock. We're waiting for session number 2 of the Nitro cars. We had just a great fan fest last night. Under the lights, the runs. It was a performance circus out there.
Buddy, it sure was. I mean, the guys were, for it being the first session and everybody wanted to just kind of, ease into the new year, man, they were throwing it at it, weren't they?
Yeah, but the big difference is if that was a standard national event, that would be the car's first time on that racetrack. NHRA won't let you test on a track within 7 days of an event taking place there. There have been a couple exceptions post-COVID, but unique situation here with this Pro Superstar Shootout. A lot of these drivers had made 8 test runs.
Yeah, they started on Tuesday. Heavy rain on Monday, got on the track on Tuesday, ran Tuesday and Wednesday.
And a couple earlier runs Thursday before our first scheduled
early
qualifier.
Runs on Thursday, and then, bam, we were at it Thursday night.
But a very unique session. In other words, Q1 typically is we're not sure what the racetrack will handle, let's see. In this circumstance, you had a lot of crew chiefs that already had great data from the day before on the same racetrack, and I think that helped out a lot to see those standout runs last night.
Tasca's bunch sure knew.
Oh, boy. They had that thing dialed in, didn't they?
Oh. Have you ever had a car that you felt was that dialed in like Bob had last night?
Well,
maybe didn't put up that kind of number, but where you just got out of the car and you went, man, that is the most dialed-in race car I've ever had.
I have, and that's usually Saturday night where you're calling the trophy guy and saying you might as well just put our name on it for tomorrow because we're that good. I've been wrong quite a few times, but yes.
Was there one in particular that comes to mind?
I have had the blessing of driving for some of the greatest crew chiefs in drag racing and being able to win with all of them. So 2015 when we did the laid back headers with Jimmy Prock, my God, 7 wins that year and we were just dynamo. But Todd Okahara, my first crew chief, Ron Tobler, Johnny West, those guys have given me cars that some days just felt like you couldn't lose.
Well, I'm going to throw a curveball at you as we go to break here because we're not going to come back with funny car. We're going to come back with top fuel.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. So I've been told.
All right. Well, yeah, typically we switch the run rotation. When one runs first on Thursday, the other will run first on Friday, but we're good with fluid changes here, right?
That's why we're called Flow. We just flow with it. We're coming right back to Bradenton on Flow.
Speed, power, performance, and top-notch results on the turf, and on the track. Skag Power Equipment is mowing down the competition. Built by hard-working Americans in state-of-the-art facilities, Skag machines are made to last. Don't get left behind. Visit your local Skag dealer to discover the Skag difference for yourself. Skag, simply the best.
Musco Lighting. We make it happen.
One of the main reasons for poor vehicle performance is a dirty fuel system. It can cause decreased fuel economy and actually do harm to your engine over time. By adding Lucas fuel treatment to your vehicle, it cleans and lubricates the entire fuel system. Pump, carburetors, fuel injectors, and valves as you drive. It also improves your vehicle's performance. It's a non-solvent product designed to protect both gasoline and diesel engines. Lucas Fuel Treatment. It works.
We drive tech. We drive the industry. Going beyond the limits and advancing forward. A versatile all-in-one solution. We're here for you every step of the way. And that's why you see Fuel Tech everywhere.
Okay, do you need some money? Okay. Well, we're back here on this nice, beautiful Friday afternoon here in Bradenton, Florida. Hope you're enjoying our live coverage here on Flow. It's the inaugural Skag Power Equipment Pro Superstar Shootout presented by Johnson's Horsepower Garage, and officially the longest title for any event I have ever announced in the 36 years of my broadcasting career.
It reminded me of the scene from Ace Ventura when he goes,
yeah,
and then has to go into that soliloquy.
Yeah. Yep. So Top Fuel, as we told you, is going to be up next. And here is a look at the pairings, Kalitta and Torrance. So again, Doug Kalitta not in the show yet, because remember, we're only taking 8 cars.
We'll talk about that later. He pedaled it last night. Yeah, again, the cars that struggled last night are going to run up first. Billy Torrance had a throttle hang up on the burnout.
Yeah.
Didn't even get a chance to stage the car, and then the cars that ran the quickest will run at the back end of the pack, and Clay Millican was the best last night. Actually, he and Mike Salinas tied on ET.
And it was also Clay Millican's fastest run of his career.
Yeah, so low ET and top speed last night. Mike Salinas, same 3.688. They will be your last pair. Good way to close it in. And we had some rules changes in the offseason.
We did, and they have thickened the tubing, the front end of the cars on these top.
Well, they didn't magically thicken the tube, and there's nothing you could brush on there.
No. You got to buy new pipe.
They had to cut the front halves off these cars. Now, some of the teams had done it last year. I think the spec went from .048 up to or up to, I think it's 056.
It's
now.
Thicker.
Yes, it is. They thickened the tubing, and what you may deduce from that is that's God, if you stretch that all out, that's 60 feet of tubing. It added some weight to the cars. So NHRA said, look, you guys are spending a ton of money on titanium parts trying to keep these cars near the minimum weight. We're just going to bump the minimum weight up for everybody. So several teams had to bolt weight on their cars. Every team now has to meet the thicker tubing specs. Talking to a couple of drivers, and some don't notice any difference. Some have noticed it has understandably deadened the car a little bit. In other words, instead of it hiking the left front wheel, a whole lot of twist at the launch there, it's kind of stiffened everything now.
Here's a look at our shootout format for the Top Fuel category. Basically exactly the same as the funny cars. 250 grand going to these guys as well. And of course, same as funny car, all NHRA rules and racing procedures governing the action this weekend.
So we talked about that rules change at Top Fuel. The only other real rules change was push rod maximum OD, and that affected maybe 3 teams out here. And NHRA was trying to do that to keep the cost down, so everybody didn't have to run out and buy the biggest, better, newest stuff there. But basically at the end of this, funny cars haven't had to change anything. The dragsters have had to spend some time revamping their chassis, make them a little bit stiffer. a little bit stronger out there, and the minimum weight has jumped up because of that.
Well, they are just about ready with the track prep being completed. So while they finish that up, we're going to take care of a little more business on our end, take a quick break from here in Bradenton, coming back with session number 2 for Top Fuel right after this.
Speed, power, performance, and top-notch results on the turf and on the track. Skag Power Equipment is mowing down the competition. Built by hard-working Americans in state-of-the-art facilities, Skag machines are made to last. Don't get left behind. Visit your local Skag dealer to discover the Skag difference for yourself. Skag, simply the best.
We drive tech. We drive the industry. Going beyond the limits and advancing forward. A versatile all-in-one solution. We're here for you every step of the way. And that's why you see Fuel Tech everywhere.
There is less than 1/100th of an inch of motor oil protecting your car's engine. Friction and heat causes engine oil to experience thermal breakdown, weakening its ability to protect the engine and its parts. Lucas Heavy Duty Oil Stabilizer is specially formulated to resist thermal breakdown, protect vital engine parts, and extend the life of your engine. It also stops smoking, knocking, and oil consumption in worn engines. Lucas Heavy Duty Oil Stabilizer. Keep that engine alive.
Sun is bright and shining down on the staging lanes, and there you can see the Top Fuel cars making their way through the pro pits, and you can see all the fans. Boy, they have done a lot to make this a fan-friendly event here, haven't they?
Yeah, it's first class, and the stands are starting to fill, and it's always a great feeling. I got here early this morning for me, and the amount of people already walking through the pits, it's just, God, it's great feeling.
Fantastic to see.
Yeah, they're prepping the track right now. They're spraying some glue out there. They're doing the tire rotators, laying it down. They want to make sure this place, you can't control the sun. God's in charge of that. Mother Nature's going to heat the racetrack. But you can prep it to the best ability to give the crew chiefs a wider margin for getting to the finish line.
So Courtney Enders is a part of our broadcast crew this weekend as well, and she's been busy down in the pro pits helping warm up one of the nitro cars.
Oh, you got some narrow hips, boy. I'm Courtney Enders, and I'm about to warm up Justin Ashley's Top Fuel dragster. What?
When you start to hear it like turn over,
like tell me.
turn the fuel on.
All the way.
All you do, turn it on.
Tough or easy?
It's easy.
What happens if it like inches forward a little?
It's okay.
Okay.
Okay, foot on the clutch, hand on the brake. Okay, I'm going to tell you when to turn the fuel on. They're going to start it, okay? And that's all you have to do. Just foot on the clutch, hand on the brake.
Oh my God. This is absolutely insane. I can feel it in my sternum. Oh my God. Wow. Hey, I don't think I'm a pro shot there anymore. Thank you for letting me do that. That was so sick. Thank y'all. Okay, so my heart rate just went from 71 to 171, and I was sitting down in there.
What a thrill. Congratulations, Courtney. I know that's a memory she'll hang on to forever.
But I love what she just did to show the heart right there.
Oh, yeah.
She wasn't in competition. The car was on
sitting
jack
there
stands.
idle. Yeah.
Think about when you're going into the final round for a world championship, even as a conditioned driver, the heart rate gets up there.
Yeah, here's a look at our pairings and our qualifying order.
Yeah, it says round one. That's round one of today. They've already run one round yesterday. So our defending world champion, Doug Kalitta, is going to lead us off. And Billy Torrance, who didn't get a shot at the track after having the throttle hang up on the burnout and coasting off the track, that's another good running car. And we're going to bookend that with the two quickest cars from last night, both of which ran 3.688, Mike Salinas and Clay Millican.
Yeah, should be a lot of fun to watch. Well, let's go down to Jamie Howe now.
And Doug Kalitta, you know, he had to pedal the car last night, so he is not yet qualified. 3 sessions today, of course, so not a whole lot of worry. But just to follow up on the lack of worry, in testing over the last several days, he was able to complete 10 different runs down the racetrack, and he led the times with a 6:65 with an 8, which is not only just a stout number, it put him at the top of the field had he been able to run that number last night in that qualifying session. So there's not a whole lot of worry over there for Doug Kalitta's camp. Alan Johnson is still at the helm after winning that championship last year. He's now joined by Mike Savage, who comes over from Brittany Force's Monster Energy car. Brian Hewson moved on over to Shawn Langdon's car. So they're trying to get those two cars to run a much closer combination, be able to work together, share some data, and you know, it starts this weekend.
Kalitta is strapped into the applied car there on the left of the two cars as he's sitting there.
Yeah, going back to their champion celebration, I always thought it was a shame that the Kalitta group just was never able to show their emotion.
Yeah.
And Connie Kalitta, the Patriot, there's a guy that from the early 60s, just a standout driver in Top Gas and
he's
then
here
Top
this
Fuel.
weekend.
Yeah, I think of him, Garlitz, Darrell Glenn, Jerry Glenn. There's just some legends on the grounds. You know, we're talking about, Jamie said Doug Kalitta had pedaled the car last night. Went out there, smoked the tires, lifted off the throttle, got back on it, smoked again. And I was talking to him later, and he said, Schumacher never let me do that. If you don't own the car, it's hard to convince the team owner that you might beat up some of their parts and qualify them to getting on or off the throttle. The downside is you don't get to practice that. So if you need it on race day, you don't have that implemented in the back of your mind to pull out there. And talking to Kalitta, I thought it's funny. Doug's very self-effacing. He said, as soon as I pedaled, I said, why the hell did you just do that? And he said, I stepped off of it.
Well, they're still taking care of things, so our production truck would like to take care of some. Hey, how about the Dolphins? Look at that. That's pretty cool.
I remember the first time I saw a dolphin when I was out surfing, except I didn't know it was a dolphin for about 15 seconds.
Had your attention real quick, huh? We're coming right back. Dolphins and all. Well, they're continuing to get the track ready here at Bradenton Motorsports Park for our first nitro runs of the day here at the Skag Power Equipment Pro Superstars Shootout, presented by Johnson's Horsepower Garage. Johnson there getting himself ready.
You know, if I had $1 for every time Alan Johnson's fired up a nitro car, I'd have a lot of dollars.
You wouldn't be sitting next to me, would you?
Yeah, I'd be sitting in
over
a
on
top
that
fuel
beach.
car. Yeah, we're told we're a few minutes away from starting here, and you know what's happening is they're just rolling the track, prep equipment off the racetrack, push the cars into position. So, and as a driver, there's not much you can do at this point, Ralph, but sweat.
Not much you can do as an announcer either. Just hang out.
The canopied car, you have the luxury of shade, but you're stuck with rolled up windows in the supermarket parking lot.
One of the things they've done here at Bradenton just for this event, they've put up a variety of different VIP sections. That's one of them right there. There's a big one behind us here, behind the staging lanes. They've really done a lot to try to upgrade the facility and upgrade the venue for the fans and to give them a fantastic experience here. And that was all done by Pro and the folks at Drag Illustrated who've come in to basically promote this event. They've come in, rented the track out, put some $300,000 into improvements into the facility for this event, and boy, does it show.
We had a good discussion with Chad Head. Chad's track specialist in his own right and a logistics guy par excellence, and just the amount of things that they did to be able to bring a pro race here.
Jack, that's the VIP deck behind the start line.
I don't know how you could tell. Is that the VIP deck, right?
Well,
how in the world?
I've walked around enough to see it.
Yeah, they had that thing lit up multicolor last night. It was really cool. Hey, I hear something in the background.
That rumble is not a storm making its way in. That's the thunder of nitro getting ready to go.
I'm going to hold down all the recording equipment on the shelf in front of us.
Yeah.
I wore it on my lap 3 times last night.
There's Doug Kalitta right there. If you were with us last night, tuned into our flow coverage from here in Bradenton, every time the nitro cars stomped on the pedal, everything on our desk fell into our laps. It was fantastic.
Side-by-side burns.
Billy Torrance in the other lane, on the right side.
And you know why they do the burnout, correct, Ralph? Because it's cool as hell.
That's right.
Yeah, those tires, slicks. A treaded tire only has tread to channel water off, so you don't hydroplane in rainy conditions. Tread, each groove between them is an area of the tire that's not touching the pavement. There's no traction from air. So a slick surface means the entire tire touches the racetrack. 5 to 8 pounds of tire pressure means when they apply the torque, that tire squats down, it gets longer, more contact area. They're sticky when they tow the cars up to the staging area. Everything sticks to them, so the burnout will clean the tire off, puts a little bit of heat in it. The old days that used to be necessary for optimal traction. Today's compound's not nearly as much, especially on a track with this kind of temperature. All right, we'll pre-stage.
Whoa, Billy Torrance at the far end. He'll put up a 333.990 mile an hour effort. Kalitta goes 3.678 and right to number 1.
Right off the trailer. And that's what happens when you have 2 good cars that struggled the session before. They run early and they literally set the benchmark for everybody else. The tires squat, the tires start to grow, that wing downforce starts to apply, lock-up stages on the clutch, that G meter gets high, and those things just boogie all the way to the finish line.
As smooth as Kalitta's car runs, you can see.
You saw that twitching, Billy Torrance's car. Remember, tiny front tires, no weight up front. Massive rear drive tires, lot of weight in the rear. As an aerodynamicist, they would tell you it's not a great idea to have the heavy big thing behind and the small skinny thing up front. The car wants to swap ends sometimes, and that steering can get pretty darn twitchy. That front wing putting about 1,600 pounds of downforce on those small front tires. That rear wing can put several thousand pounds of downforce onto the slicks.
This is Mark Floriani, the president and CEO of FloSports, here with us this weekend. Ben Shelton, I think he's talking to. That's Mark is in the red.
Can we read their lips? Are they betting on a race? Never bet on a drag race.
So you say. Well, if you're going to, this would be a pretty good pair to put a wager on. Shawn Langdon and Antron Brown. Langdon in the Kalitta Air car, inching his way forward. And AB will be up next. Here he comes.
Jamie was talking about the crew chief movements over at Kalitta Motorsports and trying to make both cars as identical as possible, which is easier said than done. These cars all run a 6-disc clutch, which means 6 separate clutch discs. You can get up to 2 runs out of a clutch disc. On a 6-disc, typically they will run 3 or 4 new discs, 2 to 3 one-run old discs that have been taken back to machines, reinstalled in a new package. Well, when you run 2 cars, you don't get 1,000 of one disc at a time. You get 200 of this disc, 180 of this, 400 of this. It's very hard to divide everything in half because you run out too soon. So even if you try to tune the cars the same, they almost never have the same clutch pack in it. However, Alan Johnson just made a good lap with Doug Kalitta's car. Did Brian Hewson take that information and change anything on Shawn Langdon's tune-up? Be interesting to see.
Out to find out. Here we go. Antron, Shawn Langdon. Both of them to the far end, solid runs. 3.704, 335.320 for Shawn Langdon. And our CEO liked it. First time he's been to the Nitro start line. And Ben Shelton does a lot of dirt racing over there in the black shirt for Flo, so it's...
So my recommendation to folks that are new at drag
Welcome to drag racing, Mark. You're gonna love it.
Yes, wear dark pants.
All right, let's go to Jamie, who I believe is with Doug Kalitta.
And as soon as Doug got out of the car, he had a huge smile on his face, made it into the show, straight to the #1 spot. But then Shawn Langdon just made it in, moved up the time charts as well. For your team, how important is it now that you have something to build on the rest of the day?
Yeah, we're all between both cars trying real hard and definitely trying to get in the show. So that was a huge relief because this is a real special event with Skaggs and everything that's going on this weekend. So yeah, just hoping for the best, and we're in the show for now.
Nice job.
I talked about that the Nitro cars are slaves to the track conditions, and the track conditions are much warmer than they were last night. So say, well, Jack, then how come Doug Kalitta just ran quicker than everybody else? Well, they hit the tune-up right, and it's also a tip of the cap to the track prep crew. They spent some extra time out there. That's why we're a few minutes delayed starting the first pair of top fuel. Had the tire rotators, had the track compound out there.
Franken scraper.
A glue, and our Franken scrapers out there. And they gave them a great racetrack to run on. As Mother Nature warms the track for the next session, they're not going to have as great a track. You're limited to how much you can prep a track. You just can't take the heat away from it. But a 367 in these conditions is fantastic. I don't know if somebody's going to get more than that. Well, the nice thing is every car out here is capable of that.
Josh Hart.
Interesting. Billy Torrance last night, when he lifted after the burnout, the engine did not come back to idle. Steve Torrance's car right there just stuck at a high idle for a short period of time after his burnout.
Here's Steve's Capco machine. 40-year-old driver out of Kilgore, Texas.
These carbon fiber injectors, you buy them from an outside source. But then the crew chiefs will massage the injector blades on those, get the clearances that they want, shift them around in there. And sometimes when things heat up or the car torques, you'll get a butterfly that just hangs up a little bit. They might go back, put some Dicam on that, file it down a little bit, smooth everything out. You don't want a lot of clearance that's sucking air in when the blades are closed. You can't get the idle down too low, but you sure don't want it to hang up like what happened to Billy last night.
Darnell Carrier's machine of Josh Hart.
Yeah, both these cars ran in the 370s last night. Seeing if they can run in the low 370s.
All right, here we go. Josh Hart's on a good run. 3774, 327.820. Torrance, disappointing, 4.036, 217.630.
Yeah, if you see a replay of Torrance's car, we'll probably break down what happened. You're going to see the thing go down track, and you're going to see the pipes go raw. But remember, it will be different conditions every time down the racetrack. And even, Ralph, if God could give you the same lane and the same weather every run, these cars never do the same thing twice. They're 11,000 horsepower.
We were talking about that yesterday. I forgot which driver it was that said it, but it said basically every run is like a snowflake. No two are the same.
It's absolutely right. The clutch wear changes everything about the application of torque out there. Never the same.
Here comes Brittany. Heating up the tires in her monster dragster. Justin Ashley's Skag backed entry ready to go as well.
You know, every time you come for the first race of the year, it's new paint schemes, it's new uniforms, it's new sponsors, it gets confusing. But when you see sponsors go from one team to another, Tony Schumacher was the Skag dragster last year.
Yep.
I look down there, that is Justin Ashley this year. It takes a couple of runs to get used to who's driving what.
No doubt about it.
And Jake Coughlin in an orange car.
He really did you wrong, didn't he?
No, he did Skag right. They could not have found a better ambassador
no doubt about
to put a car in the winner's circle.
No doubt about it.
Yeah, both these cars made representative runs. Courtney with the 374, Justin with the 371. With Dave Drummond with Courtney, he wants to do better than that just because of Dave Drummond. You see, John Collins just gave her the signal to move up there. Or Brittany, I'm sorry. And,
all right, I got your back.
Yeah, and John Collins was Cruz's crew chief last year, now over on Brittany's car.
Here we go. Oh, problems big time for Ashley. Brittany with a 3.755, 331.360.
Yeah, before things went awry, Justin Ashley was on a fantastic run. Now, because his reaction times are just awesome all the time, it's not quite indicative of the way the two cars were running. Yeah, I saw something come off the car, and I'm not sure that wasn't just something on the racetrack or a panel. If we could see that again, to the left of his car on this run, you're going to see something. There you go. Cylinder just
blew right there.
Cylinder stopped firing there. So what happens is it had not started to spin the tires. It's trying to balance the fuel flow with the clutch application and the load. If you miss it, if you get too much fuel flow, it puts a cylinder out, the engine gets unhappy quick. You saw it backfire the supercharger.
Let's hear from Steve Torrance, who's with Jamie.
And Steve Torrance waiting down here, watching the rest of these Top Fuel dragsters come down the racetrack. Very different conditions than what we saw last night. Kind of middle of the pack last night, mediocre that run. What do you do now to step it up as the sun continues to shine?
Well, it felt like the car was running really good. It got out there and knocked the tire off probably 400, 500 foot. I don't know what that was a result of. I saw Richard open the flap, start making adjustments to the knobs as I'm getting ready to stage the car. So maybe we got a little too aggressive, but like I said, we got 3 more runs today, so we're going to go after it. Tomorrow's going to be the same conditions, more similar to what we have today and tonight. So got all the faith in the world in those Capco boys. I mean, we're working hard, but how about this race? This is awesome. It's sold out today. I think it's sold out tomorrow. The fans are having a blast. This is how drag racing should be done. There's some people that should be taking notes.
Now hold on. We have two sessions left of qualifying today, and we just saw we have a great drone shot showed the traffic lineup and people still waiting to get into the racetrack. Doubled the sales from yesterday. As a competitor, as somebody you go to all of these national events, as somebody who's been around all of it, how does this for you stack up?
You know, as a whole, just the whole vibe here is more relaxed, more fan-friendly. Just, it's a different vibe, and I don't really right now know how to explain it. But, I mean, I waited in traffic about an hour trying to get in here this morning at 9 o'clock. So I'm excited. I think that everybody here is going to have a good time. There's going to be a concert tonight to hang out, and we'll get to mingle with some of these fans. And this is drag racing, this is drag racing central. This is where all the races happen except for fuel cars. And so now we're right in the middle of it, and we got a bunch of fans supporting us. So I'm happy about it.
Certainly is fun. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
There is an energy here for sure, Jack. That is different. You've been to every national on the tour. I've been to just about every one. Every drag race is exciting, but there is a different vibe here for sure.
Because it's different. Yeah. I would love to see an event like this have some perpetuity. Let's see the second, third, fourth edition and see what works. What Steve was referring to when he said Richard Hogan, as crew chief, opened the flap and adjusted the knobs. Not to be confused with Floyd's knob. Entirely
I was wondering if you were getting that.
Entirely different deal.
So proud of you for pulling
There is
that
a
off.
little hinge door, and on dragsters, it's in front of the driver's area, and it gives the crew chief access to the timers and these flow control valves. You turn them clockwise, you shrink an orifice, it delays or minimizes clutch flow. The opposite way makes things happen bigger. Then the timers either make them happen sooner or later. So when they're talking about clutch application, the more you give it, the sooner you give it, the harder you're trying to run.
Next pair is fired up, and it should be Leah Pruett and Tony Schumacher. There's Leah sitting right there. There's Johnson's horsepower garage back machine, all in red here this weekend. Tony Schumacher first in the box, and there's Leah. Now, there was a lot of talk that this was going to be Leah's last run in the dragster, that Tony was stepping in at Gainesville coming up in a couple of weeks. Some truth to that. Yeah, Tony is stepping in at Gainesville, but Leah, we're told now, is also going to make some runs in Gainesville.
So I believe Leah's going to compete in the Pep Boys All-Star Call-Out event, that 8-car race within a race. But Tony will be competing in the Gator Nationals. For those of you outside of drag racing that may never have heard of the name, it's Tony Stewart. He's driven a few different cars over the years.
Yeah, I've watched him in just about everything he's ever strapped into.
You hate to say natural, but when I looked it up on Google, there was a photo of Tony Stewart under the heading natural.
Yeah, he's right up there with Mario and AJ.
Yeah, and speaking of Tonys who know how to drive, how about that Schumacher guy?
They're getting ready to go here. Tony in the black and white machine. Oh, problems for his Leatherwood entry, but Leah goes straight down the boulevard with a 3:7:59, 321.580. She's inside that top 8 in 7th.
If we watch a replay on that Schumacher's lane, you're going to see it black tracking. What that means is the tires start to spin. You're going to see the tracks behind the car get darker. Again, the fuel pump is mechanically driven from the engine. It's dumb. If the engine goes faster, the fuel pump goes faster. If the fuel pump goes faster, it dumps too much fuel to be burned into the cylinders, and it's going to start dropping holes.
between 75 and 80 degrees, this track changes dramatically and starts to fall.
Well, we'll see if we can get a current track temperature. We still got some cloud cover, and I'm going to guess it's hovering around 100 degrees right now for track temperature. And it's getting to that point, you know, at 105 degrees, they're going to have to back the tune-ups down another notch. At 110 degrees, they slow everything down a little bit more. Boy, on Mike Salinas' burnout, they got a throttle stop on there, so the driver doesn't, you don't have control of how much power it gives. You just open the throttle, that slight crack till it hits the throttle stop. But that car almost looked like it didn't spin the tire for a fraction of a second and it shot forward. What you don't want to do on the burnout is put any undue wear into that clutch.
There's Salinas right there in the scrapper's entry.
So that burnout kind of polishes the clutch. A lot of the teams in the pits used to whack the throttle a couple times, holding the brake on the jack stands in the pits on the warm-up to kind of micro sand that clutch, give it more contact area. A lot of them have gotten away from it. It could be a little bit hard on the valve train. I think it should be mandatory because it's totally cool. But they feel like on the burnout, that slides the discs around enough to kind of polish everything up there. But you don't want to put too much heat in there.
Millican gets all the way through. He goes with a 4.084. That's disappointing at 211.390. 4.696, 157.
Yeah, he spun down track. Salinas almost looked like one cylinder hiccup right at the launch, picked back up, and then it put a cylinder out again down track, and it wasn't going to go 360 on that.
Both of them going to be frustrated with that effort.
Yeah, so they went from heroes to zeros, and Doug Kalitta went from zero to hero that session. Well, good news for everybody. They got 2 more shots to come out and flex their muscles.
Here's a look at it. Doug Kalitta to the top of the board with a 333.250 at a very quick 3.678.
Here's the interesting stat to me. Billy Torrance, Brittany Force, Antron Brown, Josh Hart, currently not qualified.
Well, Leah Pruett's in the show, Jamie, for now.
She's taking this last session as a bit of a learning lesson. It's been a long time since you'd felt the racetrack the way that it was when you got further down a little bit, but those conversations you have to have in your head, the decision making that has to happen just a split second, how do you do that?
Goodness, I mean, we've all had the same amount of off season, and for us in the dragsters, with our Johnson's Horsepower Garage, you know, this whole test session has been about performance, and with that 058, which I feel like that tubing kind of mutes my senses a little bit, and I felt like we were on a run, and I got to about 700 feet, and I felt, man, are we spinning the tire a little bit? And I think we might have right through the lights, and I was happy I was able to feel that, but the track prep has been absolutely incredible, the preparation for this race, and man, I know that we were looking for more than a 75 right there, but man, this is Friday. We get 3 qualifying attempts, another hot, you know, a cooler one tonight. I love it. I love being here. The fans are just incredible. This event is amazing. Jamie, we're having a good time, and I hope everyone sees that.
It's not often in somebody's career that they know what their future is going to be in terms of how many more of these they get to do. You making the decision to step out of the car for the remainder of this season, knowing that these are some of the last that you're going to experience this, how much do you let that soak in?
Oh man, I have a lot of thoughts in my mind for sure. What I love most really is not only driving the car and going fast, but the dynamic that we have as a team and everything it takes to do what we do. And that part isn't going away. You know, I still have a pivotal role with Tony's crew and being his coach and a new IT development that we have. So I'm very much in it, and I've thought about this for a long time. You know, the whole countdown last year, I knew that this was a move we were trying to make, and there's nothing for certain. You know, anybody that has families, that it just doesn't just happen the moment you want it to. So everyone's been patient. The fans have been patient and encouraging. So all you can do is leave it up to God, and He's provided me with an incredible spouse and team and partners like Dodge and Mopar and JHG to do what we do, which is driving race cars. And I'm enjoying every moment.
We're enjoying having you here. Thank you.
Thanks, Jamie.
Really excited for Tony and Leah as they begin that part of their life together. And, you know, we should give a shout out to Kurt Johnson and the gang at TVC Track Prep. As Leah said, they're doing a tremendous job here this
Yeah, they brought in their tire rotators, their Franken scrapers. And maybe the most important, expertise on prepping the racetrack and giving the fans and the crew chiefs and the drivers a chance to swing as hard as they can.
Speaking of taking a swing at it, that's going to be what the funny car guys are going to do up next. So we're going to take a quick break while they get them prepared and in the staging lanes and ready to go. Good day to be out on the water too, Jack. Look at that. Beautiful. Sails are up. Gorgeous afternoon. All over the place here. The Gulf Coast of Florida. We're coming right back.
Speed, power, performance, and top-notch results on the turf and on the track. Skag Power Equipment is mowing down the competition. Built by hard-working Americans in state-of-the-art facilities, Skag machines are made to last. Don't get left behind. Visit your local Skag dealer to discover the Skag difference for yourself. Skag, simply the best.
Toyota Racing is looking for iron stomachs that can stand the pressure. This season, we want you. Join us at Toyota Racing.
People said we were crazy. And so we're going to continue to do that, and we're going to do that by earning our customers' business every day in the market, breaking, punching through bullshit barriers that have been set up over the last, literally since Prohibition almost 100 years ago. We're going to break them down, and I think we've got the team to do it. And
Introducing the new 2024 Ford F-150. Tough this smart can only be called F-150.
We are back, and Cruz Pedregon has already done his burnout. He's going to run a solo pass here. Jamie, what can you tell us about Cruz and what happened to him last night?
Well, as far as what happened last night, I am not 100% certain, but I know that that team was really looking to continue the process of gelling together. They were able to make 6 passes together over testing the last couple of days, put that into perspective, and some of the other teams were able to do as many as 10, so they were already just a little bit behind. The best they ran in testing was a 4.16 with a 2, so they still have some things that they're trying to work through. Like I mentioned, new crew chiefs. They've got Jason Bunker and Johnny West that has come on board to help that team through some of the growing pains, so a lot still to learn for Cruz, but you know Cruz, right? Like, they're going to get it figured out. He's going to make sure that happens, and of course for his team and all of his sponsors, but they're still in the middle of that learning process.
And what we're referring to is Cruz's car didn't even fire up last night. They were on the starting line, and that thing didn't start. And I drove for Johnny West for several years. He is one of the most meticulous men I've ever met. He's one of the few guys that can weld a car together, build an engine, crawl in it, and drive the thing. I guarantee they will sort their issues out.
Here comes the former champ.
Little bit of shake, then the pipes started to glow down there. I'm not sure he didn't get a head gasket down there.
He just missed the top 8. He's 9th with a 267.480.
Yeah, did not make it under power to the finish line. If you watch on the right side of our screen, left side of the car, you're going to see a cylinder start to flame out. Actually, you can see it on this side as well. And that is an unhappy air-fuel ratio. And it actually drops a hole on that side, pulls him over towards the wall. Cruz stepped off the throttle early.
Here's the pair of the run orders. The pairs the way they're going to line up. All the way through to Matt Hagen and Paul Lee. Hagen not in the show. The reigning funny car champion has not qualified yet.
Yeah.
Next up should be Dave Richards and Chad Green.
Yeah, Hagen went a subpar 411. It's technically in for right now, but that ain't going to be good enough. But we're going to talk a little bit more about some performance stats, dragsters versus funny cars later, and maybe talk about some of the vernacular for the people listening at home when I'd say drop a hole. And if you're not sure what that means, it could be confusing. But the reason Cruz's car made a move over towards the wall is the way the exhaust pipes exit the car. They point up, out, and back. There's thrust there. There's up to 800 pounds of thrust coming out of each cylinder there. If a cylinder stops firing, you lose that downforce, you lose that directional force, and the car's going to want to steer towards the dropped hole. That's what happened to Cruz.
Jack, here's a quote that Matt gave to Drag Illustrated coming into this event. There are no easy draws, and you want a heavy hitter every time. If there's anyone you're scared to race against, you have no business being out here at Bradenton this weekend. I love that quote. Sums up exactly the level of competition here.
You're racing for $250,000 now.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm more of the Frank Hawley mindset. Calm, cool, collected. That'll get you there. But you're racing for $250,000.
$250,000.
There's no points. There's no championship implications. It's a one-race deal, and somebody's getting $250,000 at the end of the day tomorrow.
Chad Green would like to take home that as he backs into place.
Yep, so
on code entry.
13 funny cars. I've done the math now. If 8 qualify, 5 don't qualify. We're going to talk a little bit later about what happens to the 4 dragsters and 5 funny cars that don't qualify, because there's going to be some huge names amongst that crowd. But when you only are running an 8-car field, and you give everybody 4 qualifying runs, things can get really interesting.
Bodies are down and locked in place. So our next pair ready to go. Dave Richards, Chad Green.
Yeah, Dave Richards has been running part-time for years. It's his brother Paul up at the starting line there. And they've got the funny, they're going to run the full tour, but right now they don't have that data set of the cars that have been running the full tour.
What would $250,000 do for a program like that?
Well, that's career-changing to a team at that level right now. But right now, they just want to qualify.
Green issues off the starting line. Richards through the lights. 7.6.15, 78.7, and a 399.5 at 313.680.
On a top fuel car, when it spins the rear tires, it's easy to see they're out in the open. On a funny car, because the body's over it, it's harder to tell. If you show the replay, you often don't see the smoke come out of the funny car tires because it's trapped under the body. How do you tell? Well, the rear end raises up, the front end goes down some, it changes the pitch of the car because the tire grows a whole bunch. And so on Richard's car, that green and white machine there, you're going to see them launch, and as they start to apply the clutch out there past 150 feet, it just, actually, it just looked like it almost went into tire shake for a second when he stepped off the throttle.
Let's go to Jamie, who's with Cruz.
Cruz now in the field in that number 8 position for the time being. It was that 4.00 with a 4. You've been around for a long time. It's nothing new for you to start a season off with a new group of guys, people in new places. When you think about the human element of everybody having to come together, what stage of that process are you guys in right now?
Well, we're still in the early stages. You know, they call this testing, but we're practicing. And a lot of it is really the car, but it's also the human element, getting everybody acclimated. A lot of these guys have never worked with each other before, let alone me and our equipment. So but we're coming along really nicely. We had a little problem with the shut-off system last night, but the car's trying to run. The car is really trying to run the number, and it shut off there before the finish line. So I don't know what that was about, but but we'll fix it. And but yeah, I just want to say hi to all my dirt track racing buddies. A lot of guys that I'm friends with, sprint cars, midgets, and their late models, flow things. So a lot of my iRacing guys too. So yeah, it's good to be on Flow. Hey, good to be here and root for the Samplon car.
Great new audience, getting a good show. Thanks, Chris.
Okay, here we go with Blake Alexander and J.R. Todd. J.R. Todd in that bright yellow DHL entry backing up now. Blake Alexander pulling the head entry back into place. There's J.R.
And what Cruz was referring to when he said the safety system wouldn't allow the car to start last night.
I was speaking with J.R. as we were walking over to the booth here, my son Lucas and I, and he was talking about how they're having issues getting the car to get up on the tire right away out of the hole.
You need controlled wheel spin. That sounds like an oxymoron, but you need the tire to rotate faster than the racetrack. If it grips too tight, it looks like a tank track. It stretches that tire way out. It's going to wind up shaking the tire and smoking the tire. You need to get it spinning enough to stay round, not spinning enough to smoke the tire.
So let's see if they get it right on this one.
Yeah, so what Cruz was alluding to, that safety system, it'll automatically shut the car off if the oil pan pressure goes up too much, which is probably what shut him off before the finish line. But something went wrong on it, wouldn't let the ignition turn on last night, so they couldn't start the car.
All right, here we go. JR's Supra right down the boulevard. He goes to number 2. And we got
We're going to wait for numbers. We got a little glitch in the
system
scoreboard up there. Now, to your point, watching JR's car, it didn't look like it got up on the tire as quickly as they would have liked it to on that run. And again, my timing electronics fell in my lap when the cars left, so I'm afraid maybe I shorted out the scoreboards.
You might very well
Yeah,
have.
we're seeing some numbers up on the scoreboards that certainly aren't representative of what those two cars ran. So we'll see if we can get you some real data. And, you know, that's just the electronic gremlins that get you once in a while.
Well, we are officially at 75 degrees, too, by the way. Ambient.
And I would imagine that the track temperature has finally got above 100 degrees at this point. But these crew chiefs, you think about this, counting test sessions and the national events they go to, they spend 95 days at the racetrack. They're pretty good at monitoring the weather. They come in hours before the run and they just keep plotting graph points of what the weather's doing, and then you say, okay, we're running another hour and a half. We got to make a call for head gasket thickness, which is compression ratio. I think the air is going to be about here, so they make a head gasket call, and if you don't nail it exactly, you can still change the supercharger overdrive or the nitro percentage. And then as they tow up to the starting line, they're like, okay, I think the track temperature and the air temperature are going to be about here. This is the clutch settings I want to be in it. And they could still change that stuff in the staging lanes. They'll always come up with the nitro mixed higher than the level that they might want to run. They can pour alcohol into the fuel tank in the staging lanes to bring the nitro percentage exactly where it needs to be.
All right, more nitro education when we come back to Fast Jack Beckman and Bradenton Motorsports Park right after this quick break. Stay with us here on Flow. Welcome back to Bradenton. That is the Sunshine Skyway Bridge, Jack, heading over into St. Pete. Beautiful, isn't it?
Is it sponsored by Skag Power Equipment?
It has to be. Everything
and
else
Johnson's
down here
Horsepowered Garage? Nailed it, didn't I?
Yeah, I would think so.
So we're looking at the crew chiefs walking the racetrack. I'm not sure. Last pair we had some sort of timing glitch there, so we might have a minute. I'd like to talk about some facts. The quickest two runs from last night were Bob Tasca's jaw dropper and funny car, and then Clay Millican's 368 in top fuel. And you look at relative numbers there. G-force is probably a good one to represent.
Okay.
Easy to explain. Sit on your, or lay on your back on the ground. You are experiencing exactly 1 G. If you had an identical twin, have them lay on top of you, you're experiencing exactly 2 Gs. When a nitro driver steps on the throttle, and let's contrast Tasca and Millican, 10 feet into the run, those cars are both just under 4 Gs. And you say, that doesn't sound that impressive. Well, if you're 200 pounds with your parachute, it means you are pressing in, 200 pounds with your fire suit, I'm sorry. It means your body is pressing into the back of that seat with 800 pounds of force. And that's 10 feet into the run.
Yeah.
That car has barely started to accelerate. At 31 feet out, Tasca's car was going 60 miles an hour. 31 feet out. Let me say that again. A car and a half length from the starting line, he was already going 60 miles an hour. By 60 feet, he was going 85 miles an hour. Clay Millican was just under 90 miles per hour. Now, once you start applying the lockup levers of the clutch, and that takes place starting at about 150 feet, the last lever will be applied at about 300 feet, but doesn't fully start to increase the torque level till maybe another 100 feet later. Bob Tasca was at 5.5 Gs, 2.75 seconds into the run. That was 430 feet down track. Let me say that again. At 430 feet down track, 5.5 Gs, Clay Millican was just north of 6 Gs. Both of those cars at the finish line were still pulling 2 Gs of acceleration. At the finish line, they were still accelerating at 2 times the force of gravity.
Yeah, and you're talking about rocket, astronaut experienced numbers, fighter jet pilot.
Fighter jets won't come close, not even launched off a catapult. Now,
Talking about the Gs.
I did pull 9 Gs in the Thunderbird plane. I always tell people, best 21 minutes of my life. Unfortunately, the flight lasted an hour.
Right.
But those were Gs of a different angle. We're talking about lateral Gs. This is
that's
just
a different thing.
Just shoving you back in the seat. And I'm telling you, there is nothing better for wrinkles on your face than 5.5 Gs. The downside is when you hit the parachutes, it's a negative 5.5 Gs.
Going the other way,
Here come the wrinkles right back.
Right back, and maybe more.
Yeah, so think about that. It's roughly an 11 G swing in acceleration from 430 foot to 1,100 foot. In other words, from the time you were at peak acceleration till you drive into both parachutes past the finish line, that is an 11 G swing in less than 3.5 seconds.
It's amazing. The other thing, I was talking with, trying to remember who it was we were talking with.
Just make up a name. Nobody will
Well,
know the difference.
Definitely one of our, I want to say, it might have been Antron, talking about, when you lift off the throttle, just because you've lifted off the throttle in a nitro car, it's still pulling.
Well, I'll give you an idea. Right? We put a shut off on my funny car. Apparently the crew chiefs didn't trust me. At 970 feet, it closed the throttle. It disconnected the throttle linkage. The flames would stay up to 1,040 feet. Remember, when the throttle blades close, you still have a column of air and fuel from the throttle blades down through the intake ports and the cylinder head of the valve. It still gets to burn all that fuel. It might only be a 1/10 of a second. That's 70 feet.
Yeah, that's the point Antron was making.
Yeah, when you step off the throttle, especially if it's spinning the tires, it still keeps spinning the tires for 0.2 of a second longer.
All right, Jamie, I believe you've caught up with another one of our invited stars here this weekend.
Yes, Blake Alexander didn't have a great run, regardless of what the timing system was or was not going to say. You said maybe you should have gotten out of it, maybe you should have stopped it on the racetrack. Those decisions that you have to make, though, what goes through your mind when you're trying to process all of that?
I just didn't know that it was hurt. I feel really bad about everything just because I know it's going to take a little while to clean that up. But perhaps, I could have done something different. I just didn't know that was going on. And I pulled over a little bit, but not enough. And maybe should have stopped. But, we got 2 more runs, and I'm going to smile and be happy because I have to be.
You can see there.
Yeah, you watch the replay. That car had holes out on both sides there. And Blake is beating himself up. You can hear it in his attitude and his voice, and I've been there. You could have done a better job. You didn't do a better job. Why didn't you do a better job? Well, I'll tell you why you didn't do a better job. There's only so many runs you can do per day in one of these cars, and there's only so many scenarios that you can play through your mind. That early in the run, you're not used to having the holes out there and realizing, big problem, I need to step off the throttle. It hurt itself bad, it put some oil down, and I can see now at the top end, that's what the delay is. Yeah, we're waiting for a cleanup right now.
All right, so we'll take care of a little business here on our end, and we'll be right back to Bradenton. Stay with us.
Speed, power, performance, and top-notch results on the turf and on the track. Skag Power Equipment is mowing down the competition. Built by hard-working Americans in state-of-the-art facilities, Skag machines are made to last. Don't get left behind. Visit your local Skag dealer to discover the Skag difference for yourself. Skag, simply the best.
Musco Lighting. We make it happen. Introducing the new 2024 Ford F-150. Tough this smart can only be called F-150.
Skag Power Equipment Pro Superstar Shootout, the inaugural event presented by Johnson's Horsepowered Garage. Hope you're having a great Friday wherever you are tuned in and watching us. It is beautiful over here today. I know it's that time of year here in Florida where there's racers all over the state. A lot of our good friends over a little east of here, Jack, running at Volusia Speedway Park, getting ready to run at New Smyrna. And then that little oval there known as Daytona, going to have some activity going on here in the next few days.
I've heard of that.
You going to go get some dirt in your beer before we're done here?
My son Jason is a round guy.
You say that like it's a bad thing.
Well, we're waiting for the paternity test results on that. No, actually, I love all motorsports. I love NASCAR.
I'm right there with you.
I love dirt bikes. I heard you were kind of a dirt bike guy.
I've done a few. I've done a few of those, yeah.
Love monster trucks. I love it all. My son's got really big into the graphic design lately. He designed the paint scheme on Chris King's Nitro Funny car in Chicago there. And he told me he'd give me $5 if I mentioned Beckman Designs on the coverage today. So I'd like to tell you something.
You'll do anything for
Beckman
$1.
Designs, Beckman Designs, Beckman Designs. It's $20 so far. But anyway, his bucket list, he wants to do Daytona. And I'm thinking...
it's a good thing to do.
Probably not going to happen this year, but next year will be his 18th birthday. I think that might be a pretty cool deal. Maybe we'll go do the Daytona thing.
Yeah. My soon-to-be 18-year-old behind you there, Lucas, I got to get him to Indy for the 500.
He said his bucket list is he wants to announce a Supercross event.
Anytime he wants to.
Been there,
we could do that. We'll be right back after this commercial. We've done that too. Here we go, Alexis DeJoria, Ron Counts. Alexis has a problem. Ron does as well. He puts up a 4.090, 233.670 miles an hour, 283, I should say.
Yeah, when we see the replay of that, you'll see what happened. Alexis got into trouble early spinning the tires. Caps' car looked good, and it looks like just before it got to the transition from concrete to asphalt, started spinning the tires. Spins the tires, can put a cylinder out. puts a cylinder out, can drive the car one way or the other, scoots over towards the center line. You see it start wiggling, holes out there. He stays in it for a little bit. And that is not going to be a good enough run to keep them in the show. Last night, their parachute came out early.
I was going to say, here's the advantage for Caps on this one was he kept both chutes in all the way through. I asked him about that this morning at the hotel lobby. He was having breakfast. I said, what was the deal on the parachute last night? He goes, well, there's a safety pin that goes through, and he said we had a new guy in the crew that forgot to put that in, and it just popped out.
Yeah, I think it just wasn't anchored tight enough, and then it makes the cable effectively too short that holds the chute in, and then the driver didn't even move the levers, and it activated it. But what I liked is when Caps did the burnout, backed up and stopped, they'll put it back in forward gear, pull up a foot, then the crew member will lift the. Guido, the crew chief, was right on the money, started to push the car, because sometimes that reverser is just locked up tooth to tooth. All you got to do is move it a quarter inch.
Yeah.
But at the same time he was doing that, Caps fed a little clutch pedal and backed up a second. And that's a driver
experience.
And a crew chief in a moment where things don't go as planned, both thinking freely. I really appreciate seeing that out there. Now, Alexis,
thinking correctly, right?
Yep. Alexis was sitting on a 389 from last night. That's probably going to be pretty close to the bump spot, but she could breathe a little easier. Ron Caps right now, halfway through qualifying,
getting a little nervous,
is not qualified. But I have seen too many times. Guido was my crew chief for my last driving days. That car can have no qualifying runs, go into the last session, go right to the middle of the pack. You don't want to paint yourself into that corner, though. You want to get in comfortably early, then start tuning the car up and collecting data.
Speaking of people that might be getting a little nervous, how about the reigning funny car champion, Matt Hagen? He's not in, but he's in this pair, and he's alongside of Paul Lee, who made it all the way through the lights last night and out into the sand.
Yeah, speaking to Paul Lee, he said, my fault, I didn't get the chutes deployed. I had to go back for him later. Car went into the sand, banged up the front of the body a little.
And that's Matt in the Johnson's horsepower garage entry, and here comes Paul Lee backing up.
Yeah, and Matt Hagen with Dickie Venables cleaning it. I mean, that's a multi-time champion driver and crew chief combination. And when you have that sort of continuity with the same group of guys, things just start to work smoothly, even on the days when things aren't working so smoothly. Like, I have no doubt not only that will that car qualify, that car might qualify low ET. They have so much data. They have such good chemistry together. They are both just too smart to not figure this thing out. And then Paul Lee, a lot of changes. Got John Medlin and Johnny Lindbergh over there. They've changed cylinder heads, superchargers, pretty much everything in the motor. They went to a John Force clutch combination last year. The bell house is going to stay intact, but a lot of wholesale changes in the horsepower factory there. And they're trying to marry horsepower to clutch right now. So these are true data gathering runs for Team McLeod there with Paul Lee.
Here we go. Hagen and his JHG entry, the McLeod entry for Lee alongside. Both into the beams, ready to go. Smoke coming out of Lee's entry. Hagen goes all the way through. Matt puts up a 3.942, 323 miles an hour, .890.
They got a parachute tangle
he's
there
in now.
But he's got the automatic deployment device on that, and I would recommend that to anybody. Our car was set up on front wheel distance, so if you missed the lever, it was going to get the chutes out for you. Paul Lee, I don't know if we're going to see a replay on that car that was in the right lane, and I don't know if it's chicken or egg. The car moved over towards the wall, smoked the tires. But a lot of times, the tires are spinning too much, drives the car over towards the wall, gets out of the groove, and then smokes them.
Let's hear from Ron Capps. Jamie?
And Ron Capps just ran that 409, still looking to get above that line, be able to race tomorrow in eliminations. For you, you said you're going down the racetrack, you saw a flash, not really sure what it was. What do you think in those moments?
I get asked all the time. You don't, in our sport, when you compare it to NASCAR and IndyCar and the sprint cars, we don't have the luxury of messing up a corner, missing the cushion, missing an apex, and then making it up the next lap and throwing down a couple good laps to make up for it. We don't have that. You have to make a decision when things go wrong or right in a split second, and a lot of times it's not the right decision, but you got to live with it. We don't have time to go, that doesn't look good or smell good, I better get out of the throttle, especially race day. So Jamie, I saw a flash out of my left firewall, which we have little clear windows there, and that's usually not good in a funny car. There's something going on the other side of that, which is the engine. And but I wasn't sure if it was a reflection of the sun. So that being said, I stayed in a little bit longer. It turns out it might have done something not so good, but we'll be back. We got 2 more runs, and we got a night run tonight. So I'm just ecstatic right now. The traffic getting in here is a good thing to hear, but it's a bad thing. But our Napa guys, Toyota, Sluggers here. Thank you, everybody at Flo, for tuning in.
You're already through the gate, so you don't have to worry about the traffic. People still want to come in to watch.
Thank God.
Thank you.
Daniel Wilkerson has backed up the Skag entry, and Austin Prock and Robert Height's Cornwell machine. He's backed up, and the Cruz lifting the body on his entry as well.
Did you say Austin Prock is in a funny car?
He is running number 374, the same as Grandpa Tom.
So his competition number, funny car, 374, Tom Prock, back in the day of the custom body car.
That's right, the Utica Flash.
And we had a pretty cool picture of a young Ralph Shaheen
hanging around their custom body deal. Yeah,
really cool. All right, so you're telling me this is Dan Wilkerson against Austin Prock.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
In funny cars, here we go. Prock couldn't get past the Christmas tree on his first 7 runs this week. He gets all the way to the end, but he has issues partway down. Wilkerson, a 3.980 at 310.980. For Austin, a 410 with an 8, 240.120.
Yeah, Austin's car got over on the right side of the groove. I'm not sure if it started to spin the tires, and then you see it kind of sashay a little bit. The groove is the center part of that lane. It's duller, it's better traction, and when the car starts moving over, you get one tire out of there.
Right there.
Yep, it wants to move over even more, and your tires are spinning slightly. Yeah, and Wilkerson's run was pretty good. They were probably trying for a little bit more than that, but we talked about like clutch wear. These clutches wear, and the drivers, there's some crew chiefs that prefer low wear on a clutch. Let's call that 100 thousandths per run. Somewhere a little less than that, but 100 thousandths total wear on all the clutch discs during the run. And there's some crew chiefs that prefer high wear. Let's call that 180 thousandths. If you're a low wear guy and you set your tune-up up for 100 thousandths, but you get high wear, it changes the angle of all 18 of those clutch levers, changes the application rate, changes the application force of the thing, throws your entire tune-up off. Guess what, Ralph? Your car might run quicker than you thought it was going to run, but it's going to be very hard to duplicate that. But then the other side of that, when the clutch wears off, it typically doesn't run what you tuned it up to run. So that could have been a power issue, that could have been a clutch application issue.
All right, so let's update you. It's 77 degrees now. We've got one pair left. John Force.
I've heard of him.
And Bob Tasca.
Isn't he the quickest car here right now?
Fastest guy.
Definitely the quickest, or fastest, yeah.
Fastest guy on the property for sure.
Yeah, both of these guys went 384 on the first night run. John Force with a 9 in the thousandths column. Bob Tasca went 384 flat. But it was that bottom number on the scoreboard, 339.87. Fairly certain I didn't misspeak, Ralph.
No. It was a stunning moment to see it, and he believes there
might be more there.
A 340 in there.
I talked to his crew chiefs, Todd Okahara and Aaron Brooks, this morning, and Okahara said there was room in the middle. What he means by that is the clutch application room, from 150 to 350 feet. He said based on the track conditions last night, he could have given it a little bit more in there. That would have got the G meter up higher in the run, would have given it a better ET. Ironically, because these cars have a rev limiter. Now, a Pro Stock car has a rev limiter. It's set at 10,500 RPM. It's an electronic rev limiter, and it parks the RPM at 10,500. You can't do that on a nitro car. You would blow the body off it. They have an ignition retard device. And when Robert Height went 339.87 years ago at Sonoma, NHRA said we got to limit these speeds. They moved back the threshold of RPM by which the funny cars activate their ignition retarder device. So it's an ignition retarder that discourages the RPMs from going higher. My point being is if Tasca had run quicker on that run, he would probably hit the rev limiter sooner and may have had less speed at the finish line.
Well, let's hear from Daniel Wilkerson, who's with Jamie.
And Daniel's now sitting on this beautiful Skag. This is the Patriot mower with the 52-inch deck. If you've got a little bit of bigger yard, you can get it with the 61. But we're talking about consistency here, Daniel. And you are the most consistent of the cars that have run so far. That was a 98 compared to the 95 you ran last night. Knowing that eliminations are going to happen in different temperatures tomorrow, what does that do for your confidence?
It's good. We were pretty backed off trying to get down the track there, and my crew chiefiness might have got the best of me because when it left, it was loose. She slid around a little bit on me. I didn't quite make it to the end because I had that in my head. I was like, that's loose. Be careful. So I didn't quite get to the end, but we'll adjust and we'll get there and we'll make a badass run next run.
With your dad as the crew chief, how difficult is it for you to take that crew chief hat off?
It's not hard. He's super smart, right? I mean, everything I know, I learned from him. So obviously, he's a little better than me. So a lot better than me. So working with him is it's been a dream come true, and he's a smart dude. So I don't even worry.
Such a great dynamic. Thank you.
Jamie, you need to tell him to check out that Skag Franken scraper. So the body's back down on the peak funny car of the multi-time champion John Force. And the fastest man in Bradenton, Bob Tasca's lowered the body on his PPG Mustang. He's ready to go as well.
John Force has only won 16 world championships in neither. You realize he's only 15 ahead of me.
Yeah.
Tasca yet to win a championship. It's won a ton of races, and man, has he got a horse under him to win this weekend.
Tasca goes sailing down the straight, but right towards the wall at the far end, so he's not going to get near the number he was hoping for. He gets a 4.118, 235.510. Force has to shut off early as well.
Yeah, we're going to watch the replay. Same thing happened to both cars. Smoke the tires. Force did it earlier in the run, lifted off the throttle. Yeah. Tasca's car, because it's going much, much faster when it starts to spin the tires, it makes a much bigger move putting that hole out, drives him right over towards the wall. I will guarantee you if you had an in-car camera, when that car goes right, the steering wheel goes left, and the funny car says nothing doing. You got the dynamics of downforce and thrust driving you over into the wall, and that's where the first thing you do when you get out of the car is walk over to the headers on that side and see if they're dinged up. And I'm looking at our camera footage here. I can't tell if the curb feelers got him that time or if he kept it off the wall.
He was awful close to it, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, well,
that'll close out the funny car session for session number 2. We've got 2 more here today. And the numbers look like this. Tasca still at the top. Force is number 2. Proc is 3. Lee, DeJoria, Todd, Green, and Hagen. That's your top 8. Everybody below that, starting with Daniel Wilkerson, has some work to do, including Cruz Pedregon and Ron Capps, if they want to get in this 8-car field for all the activities and potentially $250,000 tomorrow. Okay, we're going to come right back to Bradenton. We have some more to do here before we wrap up this first session of qualifying here on this Friday. Stay with us.
Speed, power, performance, and top-notch results on the turf and on the track. Skag Power Equipment is mowing down the competition,